Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. We're back again. I'm Steve from Conceptia, and we have.
Spencer. I'm Rage Quit on Discord, and I run the time-based business.
Yeah. All right. So last week we started talking about updating data, and we're going to continue that. I know we're a little bit rushed, and so we're going to continue that and go back in through some detail about how to handle that. And Spencer's actually going to show us two things tonight. First, you'll notice here there's a name field that's concatenated first and last name. And so Spencer's going to show us how he handles that because the database has those two as two separate fields. And then he's going to also show the process of refactoring that. In other words, going ahead and splitting the UI so that it has a first name field and a last name field, and then writing that back to the database. And if that's not where you're going to show us, Spencer, let me know if I got it wrong.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
sounds right.
All right, cool. All right. And so with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and then I will hand it over to Spencer to share. Okay.
Here's the app that we were working on last time, and I believe that the only thing that we have the ability to update right now is the country. Just do a quick test, and let's see. Oh yes, the other thing that we wanted to update is this data table. So when we save the changes, we want to see those changes reflected in the data table when we click on save. So there's another thing we need to work on. All right. Here's our template. And let's get into our actions where everything happens. Bring up the on-click data table row. Let's bring up the onload action. All right, so just a little bit of refresher here. We're loading.
You zoom in a bit.
Yes.
Resolution. This is tiny.
Yeah, it was actually zoomed out a bit. Is this better?
Yeah, maybe one more click if you can. One more. All right, perfect.
Okay. So we're loading the list of data into the data table here. And the data that we have is just these 5 users. On click of the data table row, we are setting all of our input fields. We're setting the image on the image element and showing the whole section on the right side. One thing that I kept forgetting in the last video is that we had this hidden, this detail section. Zoom out on this one. Show this. So by default, that pane is hidden. And then we can actually access the elements here on the left through the navigator, but we can't see them. So that's somewhat limiting. Sometimes you might have to unhide it.
Yeah, I think I submitted a suggestion about that.
Right, exactly. I saw that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good suggestion because
yeah,
of course when you hide it, you can't do anything with it on the page. All right, we've got the data detail field name. I can read. So I think the first thing we'll do is split this into a first name and last name field. Let's go ahead and get some input fields.
Oh, wait, are you refactoring? Because I thought you were going to show first how you handled the concatenated value.
Okay, sure. I can show that first. Sorry. Let me go over to this one. And actually, it's in the action. Can't remember exactly where this is, so let me look here.
Sure.
Changes. It's probably this one. Okay, so with the one that Steve showed, what we're doing to get the first name and last name is just parsing it out with regex. So we start here at the beginning. When the Save Changes button is clicked, we get the selected row and find the data record that's associated with that. Okay. Then we get the new name, meaning the name that the end user has typed in. And then we parse that out. So this regex is getting the first part of the full name up to the space. And it's assuming that that is all of the first name. Obviously, this is not the best method to do it because there are many formats of names. So that's not always going to capture all of the first name. But in a simple format, it should work. In this case, where all of our data has a single first name and a single last name separated by a space, it works. Get last name similarly uses regex to get the word after the space. Actually, it's everything after the space to be more technically correct. And then we transform the list to a separated string. So this is actually because these regex functions return an array. So this is just essentially to get the first element of the array.
That's right, because the regex will return an array of matches, right? For every match,
yes,
it sends an array. Okay.
Yeah. So we have two functions here, one for the first name and one for the last name, to retrieve those elements. Then, and I know this layout is confusing, but we go from this function back up to the create an object function here. This is creating a copy of the user data payload. So this actually is what we talked about. I think it was in the third video, maybe it was just the last one, where we create a copied object, we update the object, and then update the data body, update the data record. That updates in the actual database. Then we're disabling fields and so on. But this is essentially how I handled that, where we don't have it split out in the UI as separate first name and last name input fields. So it works for simple formats of names. It's not the best method. And what I want to show now is separating those input fields out.
Can I just bring up one thing? I saw there was a function called transform separated string into list. Did you get a chance to look at that by any chance?
Was that in the one that I was showing here?
Oh, no, sorry, it's a built-in function with NoCode-X. I'm wondering if that could be used in place of the regex as an experiment sometime.
Okay.
But I think it's called, because you can specify a string and then a delimiter. And I'm wondering if that would separate that into a first name, a list that contains first and last name. Yes, that one.
This one, transform separated string to list.
So yeah, you would pass it, I guess, the first and last name or the name. And then I guess for a separator, I'm assuming, I don't know how you specify space, if you just tap space or what, but
Looks like that would probably work. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would
So
that would be a
just,
bit simpler.
yeah, maybe. So
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
try.
Okay, yeah. Let me zoom this out a bit again. All right, so let's add the first name and last name fields, input fields. And that way, when the end user inputs that data, we can capture that as the structured data that it needs to be. Add some input fields. I suppose we could keep one of them and just call it last name. Call this one detail field first name. Um, Label. And disable it by default because we want it to be enabled only when the end user is editing this. Okay. So let's bring up the edit function. I think it is this one. And we're currently just enabling the inputs here. So we need to make a copy of this and we'll drag it in right here and do the same thing with the first name that we're doing with the last name field. Okay, that should work. Let's go back and edit the save profile action. I'm still trying to clarify between function and action. I still get those mixed up all the time.
You'll get it one of these days, right?
I hope so. Okay, so here we need to get the value of the input field. So we're again just make a copy of this.
FYI, if it helps you, I've been thinking of actions as just flows. That's just kind of what
Yeah.
I call it, because yeah, it was tripping me up as well. So
Yeah. Last name. So we're just copying these functions. It's yes, functions and new variable names, selecting the first name element here. And again, I would recommend if you're doing this for any legitimate purpose, rename these so that you can tell at a glance what they all do, because this is not very helpful unless you actually click on them.
and sorry, this is so when you say what this is doing is going through and getting the values from each field first. Is that what's happening here?
So yes, we're in the save profile changes button action right now. So this is getting the values that the user has entered. These are the values that need to be saved into the database to update, to overwrite what's already there.
Okay. Oh, I see. There's this update object. Okay.
Disable input field. So we need to disable the first name field also once the data is saved.
Can you zoom in like 2 clicks?
Sure. I guess it's saving my zoom from the template and the actions, and so I have to kind of keep going back and forth. All right, this one is going to be our first name. This one is the last name. So this is disabling the input fields after the changes are saved. We also need to make sure that the first name, last name, objects are getting updated. Right now, we're only updating country. That's the only thing that we added in the last video.
Before you get
So,
out of action, yeah, can you click on, I want to see update an object. So
okay.
can you go through exactly what that action is? No, darn it, I just did it. What that function is doing. Update an object.
Yeah. So the first part of this is to create an object, and that's just creating the copy of the object. Um, and then updating an object takes that modified object, and we're updating the country, but we also need to update the all of the other fields that the end user is modifying. So last name, um, first name, and lead source right now.
Okay.
So this your field name. These need to match what's in our data. Let me just bring up one of our users. And yes, we've got last name. So that was named correctly. Had to double check. Has to be named the same as the JSON property. And we are in update an object now. So last name needs to be updated with the new last name. Right? We're updating country with new country. We update last name with new last name. We update first name with the new first name. And lead source. Do we have a new lead source? Yes, we do. With the new lead source. That all making sense?
Yep.
Formatted correctly that time. Okay. That should be all that we need to update with the save profile action. Let's go back to this. And the other thing that we wanted to do was to update the data table. So when this save changes button is clicked, we want to update this data table. So let's think about the best way to do this. We should be able to reuse this action, right? We need to again fetch the data and add it to the data table. So it would make sense to just reuse this function, right?
Can you do you want to call it from another action? Call this action from another, or do you want to just start from here?
Yeah, I think I want to call this one from the save profile changes action. There was it's in this one, add a list to. So here, the clear data table, that we need to set to true for this to work right. Because if we're going to call this again, we don't want just new items being added to the end of the data table each time. We want it to be cleared and completely refreshed. So I guess one way to do this would be to extract these two functions out into a completely separate action. Since this one is specific to onload, in this case, I think we'll just skip that step and call the onload from the save profile changes action, which I think we can do. Let's see here, execute action. So if we just add this to the end and
Favorite function, personally. Yeah.
Yeah.
quite a few times. Yep.
It's a good way to abstract the logic.
Yep. Yep.
Onload CRM dashboard, that is the correct one. The mode is, what are our options here? Default.
And in case anyone's not sure, if I remember correctly, synchronously means kind of what you'd expect, just in sequence, one after the other. It'll execute the action and then wait for that action to complete before continuing, whereas asynchronous is the opposite. It'll kind of fire and forget. So it'll kick off the action, and then this parent action will continue executing while the child action goes off and also executes at the same time. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the front end answer means, though.
Yeah. I was curious about that too. I'd be interested to experiment with that. And cache results, do you know any about that?
Yeah, that one there, well, no more than what it just says here, but basically my understanding is that it'll hold the result set that this action generates, or that the child action generates in memory, so that if that same exact action fires again, it won't necessarily retrieve the data. It'll just use data that's been cached in memory. I think that's how it explained it to me. I don't know how to test that, or I'm not sure how to test that yet or demonstrate that because it's in memory. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's test this out, see if it works. And let's modify Eve Davis. You're very confident. Let's get an edit item. Okay, here's something we forgot. Full name is still getting loaded just into the last name field. Let's fix that. That is in I guess it's on the template itself, right? So we have, where is that getting loaded actually? It's in the on-click. All right, it's this. We're doing a replace placeholders to concatenate the first name and last name. And then we're storing that into a full name and setting that as the last name right now. So basically, we don't need the replace placeholders function anymore. We will just use not the current user, the row data last name to set the last name field. And I'll make a copy of this, drag it up here. And we'll do the same kind of thing for the first name. That should fix that. So there we go. We've got first name, last name. Everything looks good. When it loads, we edit this, let's change her first name, last name, country, lead source. So here's our user. We should be seeing all of those fields that we just changed be reflected now in our data item. I'll hit refresh data. And now we see first name, last name, country, lead source, they all did get modified. We still see these extra properties in the JSON. Still not sure why that's happening. Tristan, if you watch this, let us know, please.
It's something, yeah, I guess something's not being cleared out, something not being deleted.
It's something about updating it. It's like it's a history, like a history.
So every time you update, does that list get
unique ID? I believe so. Let's just try it out. First name. 14 right now. Okay, it didn't that time.
But you have to refresh, right? You refresh?
I did refresh.
Okay.
Yeah, it took the last one, I guess, that we
Okay.
inserted and used that. Try it once more. 14 rows. Yeah, still at 14 rows, and it just updated this one as far as the extra properties. The first name, it does get modified. I mean, all the properties that we requested to update were updated correctly. But anyway, let's hide this again just to see. Oh, so that's interesting. There it goes. Okay, maybe it didn't save. All right. I think this is good as far as the refinements. We've got the actually I didn't notice. Did you look at the data table? Did it actually update?
I did not see it.
Pay attention. Let's go here to this one that we were modifying, and I'm running out of first names.
Jasmine.
I need a list. Okay, it does update here in the data table. So as I change that, it is updating in the data table once I click save. So we'll see the country of this person change when I click on it, because it's reloading that whole data table.
That's when you did that execute an action. That's what's causing this to happen, right? Is that why that's
right?
Okay. All right. So you make the change, you hit save, and then the action calls the other action to do the reload, and that's why we see the data table updating. All right. Cool.
It's nice to see it work.
Yeah.
All right.
Told you. Told you.
Okay. Anything else that you want to see with this, Steve? Any other refinements that you're interested in? We didn't do anything with status, by the way, but it's going to be updated and everything just like these other fields.
Yeah. I can't think of anything.
Okay.
I can't think of anything right now. So, but
very good.
If you're watching this video and you think of something you'd like to see with this, please let us know. We know this is a very low functionality CRM, but we're learning. We're all learning together. So yeah, if you have any ideas, do drop a line in the community, and then we can definitely add that to another video. All right, I think that's good for this one. Right, so we'll keep the update series now isolated, and then yeah, in our next video we'll talk about finally talk about creating and deleting. All right. Yeah, thanks very much. Anything else from you, Spence, before we disconnect?
That's it. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thanks a lot.